Hi, Rachel.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. We've reached the end of a working week. We like to record these on a Friday night, and so I'm just a bit over it. I'm a bit tired, but I am excited to sit down and talk to you about something that we've watched. How about you? How are you doing overall?
I'm over it. Just overwork.
You're overworked?
And overworked.
Wow, they overwork you. You deserve a hero's wage. You do. But we're here to do something heroic ourselves. Deliver to you out there the yum yum. We're the only podcast in the entire universe that has yum yum energy. And what is that? That is where a married couple sits down and talks about individual episodes of science fiction television and are inspired by the yum yum line from Star Trek Discovery. What's that line? Well, it's exactly what you think it is. A person just said, yum yum, in reply to something. What was that something? Well, Academy Award-winning actress Michelle Yeoh asked this other character, would you like to kill someone for me? And they said...
With me.
Oh, with me? And they said, yum yum. I almost said yes. Like I was going to follow that naturally, but that's not how Star Trek Discovery works. We've covered Star Trek Discovery, we've talked about Babylon 5, we've talked about Space Above and Beyond, and today we're sitting down to talk about The Expanse, a series that is new to us, something that we have not consumed wholeheartedly before. I have mentioned in the past that when this initially aired, I watched the first 6 episodes, but I have no real recollection. A little bit of a lie. I do remember one specific image that was in this episode, which is hard to forget. This specific image. Let's just leave it at that. But overall, we are first-time watchers of The Expanse, so feel free to join us if you are watching it for the first time yourselves, or if you're somebody experienced with The Expanse, whether it's the books or the show, you can listen to us fumble our way through it and just like little children, just stagger across going, ooh, is this what this could mean? And you can laugh. You can laugh, or you can be in awe of how genius we are. That's what I mean by laughter, by the way. You can laugh at how smart we are, because I doubt we'll get anything wrong about any of the things here. And
well, it's all just so obvious.
It's just all so obvious. And this is a Patreon first show, so if you are not on our Patreon, you should come over to it, because by the time this comes out on the main feed, we'll have made our way through a couple of seasons of The Expanse. So if you want to skip ahead and hear what we have to say about episode, 4 of season 2 right now, you can do so by supporting us over at the Patreon. Now, Rachel, do you remember what episode we watched today?
CQB. Yep,
CQB, which stood for?
Close Quarter Battle.
Yeah, I was talking to you about that while we're watching it. I know CQC, which is Close Quarter Combat, but I was guessing B, and I thought battle would be it because I couldn't think of another word that could be the one. Did you have any guess on just what the initials were by any chance?
No, but as soon as you said that, I was like, he's going to be right, because he's always right, and that also makes a lot of sense.
I think they're diverting power to the railguns. That means we're in CQB.
What the hell is CQB?
Close quarter battle.
Who would be insane enough to take on the Donager in CQB?
Now, the IMDb summary for this is a delight. So, it says this: Holden and crew are caught in the middle of a desperate battle as mysterious warships attack and board the Donager. As Miller continues to investigate Julie Mao, his partner Havelock continues to go missing. I love that.
Continues to go missing.
It's like whoever wrote this hates Havelock too.
It's like there's not a process. There's not a process to going missing. Once you're missing, it's complete.
Rachel, he's continuing going missing. He's not been found yet. It's like hide and seek. He's still out there. What's hilarious is somebody finds him during the episode
and
tries to rob him.
Way to say that.
I've done a good amount of the talking, so I want to hear from you. Your quick fire thoughts, your impressions, your feelings overall on episode 4 of The Expanse.
Like, I had two sort of main takeaways. One is that it's moving forward in the way that I think it is. Like, each episode moves the pieces in the way that I'm expecting. It's just like, okay, we have this little bit with Christian and she does this sort of thing. Miller does this sort of thing and this thing happens. And Holden is in this situation and he's at this point by the end of the episode. Like, it's very
logical.
Yeah. Logical storytelling. They're not pulling out major twists on me. I was just like, because I'm being very analytical about it. Not just because we're doing the podcast.
It's also a new show.
It's a new show. It's a new perspective. And the other thing that I noted after we finished it was I'm enjoying the world building a lot more now that it's slowed down.
Yeah, the world building aspects have slowed down while the plots are picking up steam. So what did you think of the episode, though? That was a very, as you said, analytical at a distance, but what did you think of CQB?
I enjoyed it overall. Sort of at the end of it, I was just feeling like, yeah, this is a world that I can spend 6 seasons in.
So you're warming to it overall.
Yes, but I'm very wary that it may not stay at a certain level of quality because I know that it got cancelled and it got picked up by Amazon. And I don't have much faith in shows that Amazon
I've never
produces.
watched an Amazon show other than, of course, when Star Trek Picard was distributed on there for Australia.
Yes.
So I have no clue. I don't even know.
I just don't think that they very much have seem to have the model of anything can be put on Amazon Prime.
Interesting, because Sci-Fi, which this was originally on, is the one out of the two that has the
worst reputation.
You look more down on them. Now, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I didn't enjoy it as much as the last episode. The last episode had more of the elements that I like to sink my teeth into, but this one did have that structure a bit more that I was yearning for in the previous one, where we spent more time on one story in particular. Yeah, and I think that was beneficial to making this one stand out in comparison to the previous ones. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it as strongly, and I also want to point out that according to IMDb, this is the highest rated episode we've watched thus far. It's an 8.5, quite a step up as well in comparison.
Quite an 8.5, but I liked it more than the last episode.
Okay, interesting. So see, there's the difference between us two. Now, my favorite moment, oddly enough, was something that I treated very dismissively in the previous. So let's open up the can of worms that is Mormons in space.
Mr. Johnson, the Latter-day Saints took a considerable risk hiring you to build the Nauvoo.
I know. Deco spends up asteroids. We don't build ships. Not till now.
It was so specific in the way that it was done and what it needed to get done. And it's a very weird compliment, but a lot of the writing in The Expanse is efficient. And I think that scene exemplifies that.
How so?
Because it doesn't set up too much information. It's creating intrigue We get a little bit of background. We know that they're on this station that's been mentioned, the Tycho.
Mm-hmm.
Then we find out that they're building a ship. We find out that this dude is related to a terrorist organization.
Yes, Clyden from the Orville. Same
Mm-hmm.
actor as him. Yeah,
The
so
OBA.
the OPA.
OPA.
Just to quickly go over it for a sec, the scene is just this random guy who we don't know. I don't even know his name, but he's an OPA terrorist or related to the OPA, and he's helping bring all these belters along to build a spaceship for the Mormons to fly away to a planet that's 100 years away. And it's a conversation between
in another solar system.
It's a conversation between this Mormon elder having concerns about the OPA, something that is a running thread throughout every episode.
Obfuscating that by saying the elders have concerns.
And then it evolves to I have concerns.
Yep.
And that's the scene. But as you were saying, it's quite efficient. It's cutting through a lot of that world building stuff like you're talking about, where we know that this station exists. We're now learning that this spaceship exists and there's this specific purpose to it. But it's not bogging itself down and just exposition.
It's not doing more than it has to do. It's not trying to build up these characters. It's we need this information. So we're presented this information. And it's coming in now because it's going to be important later. And it might be that we'll get a couple of scenes next episode that relate to this, or we'll get just another one-off scene and it'll keep on building up. Because a big question that the show is making you ask is, who is making these stealth ships?
And we're seeing that there's many different people out in the galaxy that are building ships all over the place. And time and patience can allow, and money, of course, can allow that. And if the Mormons, this organization that exists outside of just Earth, Mars, and the Belt, can make their own ship, their own ark that can fly off for 100 years, why can't somebody build some nasty little stealth ships?
Last episode, we got the Mormons in that little moment, comedy club. Now we've gotten a full scene with one of them.
What I really was drawn to about this was a few things. One, it's an interesting concept. Mormons being this religious group that has persevered, and now they're going out into the stars. And you and I can talk a little bit more about that and Mormonism, because you have a fascination with the Mormons. That's your internet rabbit hole you like to go down. And we can break into that in a second. But what I really like about outside of that concept, which is novel to me, I haven't seen that. Like, this whole arc in space isn't new, but this twist to it is. But I really liked how it was a conversation that was realistic. It makes sense. It's giving us exposition, setting up this story thread, but it was also a philosophical musing and thematic musing as well. I was really hooked in by the exchange about how, well, guess what? Religions, not all of them were just founded on being civil. Many of them were founded on rebelling against the authority, including in violent ways. And you, the Mormons, should understand that more than anybody else. And the elder there being a bit of a hypocrite about it, looking at it and acknowledging it on the face value, but not actually acknowledging it because he is uncomfortable with the Mormons' holy ship being fueled by terrorists, basically, or being aligned with a group that has that lean to them. And I found that to be just such an enriching moment, and really makes me lean forward and go, okay, You've got me interested in the Mormons now. Not what I was expecting to say after last episode, but I actually want to know how they are going to play into the story. I want to know their relationship going forward with this guy and the OPA. And I don't know, how are they going to connect to the rest of it? Are they going to get attacked by the stealth ship? I don't know. But just that idea of how being civil doesn't always mean doing the right thing. Sometimes you have to fight against the powers. And we're watching all of these other players in the story try and maintain the status quo, try and maintain order.
The balance of power.
But here we have somebody arguing that there is a detriment to society. And often these steps forward are made through organizations like the OPA or ones that would eventually become religious groups.
Yeah.
The OPA is only interested in human rights and jobs for all Belters.
And fomenting riots on Ceres, and inflaming passions in the wake of the Canterbury.
The history of organized religion isn't exactly strife-free.
Lots of people have fascinations. A lot of mine are to do with lifestyles.
Mm-hmm. Cults, murders, weird religions, right?
I was going to specify a bit further and say lifestyles that I would never want to take part in. I like seeing people who live their lives very differently to me. And Scientology doesn't grab me as much for whatever reason. Like, I've watched some Scientology docos and stuff like that, and it hasn't grabbed me as much.
In that weird, sick fascination way. Yes.
As the Mormons. And I think it's because the Mormons seem so normal on the outside, and then you learn more and more about their weird rules and what it's like on the inside of the temple. And it's just like, and it is also weirdly more accessible because it's just like, yeah, you can pay your way to the top of the Mormon church. And you obviously have the tithing thing. But with Scientology,
I just like how Rachel says that, like, obviously you have that. Obviously, I don't know what that means. I don't know what she's referring to.
Oh, like tithe. You know what a tithe is.
Yeah, I don't know it in relation fully. You know so much more about the Mormons. Like, literally, you brought up last episode, and this is why I wanted to press you. You brought it up last episode that they have a special planet that they want to go to.
Well, yeah, they have the idea that they will get, well, in some versions of their sort of mythos, they get their own planet in space.
And that's what these guys are going to.
That's like the highest level, it's the celestial kingdom, I think.
These guys are flying off to a celestial kingdom.
Like, you'll get your own spot, and at least currently, if you've had multiple wives in your life, so like the mainstream Mormon church, right? I just find this super fucking weird. Has outlawed polyamory for the living, but not in the afterlife, because their marriages last into the afterlife. But if your spouse dies and you remarry, then you are married to both in the afterlife.
Interesting.
But yeah, they, like, Mormons have this whole idea and conception of space and the celestial kingdoms and various other things that I have a vague knowledge about. But I want to circle back. Do you know what the word tithe means?
No.
Okay, so it basically means to give a portion of your income to the church. Like, it's usually pretty much always the church. So I think with Mormons, to stay like active members, they have to give like 10% of their income, which some people find a bit tricky when it comes to online creators who are a bit secretive about how they're Mormon.
Yes, I see.
They don't want their money going to the church, but maybe they want to support the creator, but they can't support the creator without
supporting the church. And in this, you can see how the church is using that idea to make a spaceship.
Yep.
They're funding themselves to escape from everything.
The Mormon church has billions of dollars.
Oh, they're very powerful.
Like they're powerful now and wealthy now.
Imagine in the future.
Yeah, you get the idea that that's just compounded, especially because they have entire states that are majority Mormon now.
They have cities. I actually spotted that the ship's name was one of their cities or their temples. I said to you, like, isn't that one of their, like, well-established places? Like, isn't that one of their founding places?
Yeah.
And you looked at me like, I'd have to look it up. And I'm like, I felt very smart. I'm like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, because I've seen it written down before.
Because I got confused because you were like, the name of the station.
And
I was like, the name of the station's...
the ship, but
it's it is the ship, and it's one of, I think it's like one of the main places where they built a temple when they were going through with Joseph Smith, and then they rebuilt the temple over again later.
Okay,
so that may tie into it as well. The idea of maybe this is an ark that's being rebuilt. Like, it's tying also back into that idea that's linked to the temple, maybe?
It's also the idea that this temple that exists on Earth is now being propelled into space to go away. Like, they're redoing it again. This is the ultimate step that you can take with that in relation to what you mentioned about the celestial kingdom, right? But I'm very interested now in seeing the Mormons in this show. I dismissed them before because I personally do not have a fascination with Mormons. I find them insidious and I don't care for them all that much. But you are more intrigued by them as just this oddity of culture and society. And so with you, when it comes to them being involved...
Why would God care if you have caffeine or not?
But
why do you need like 3-liter cups of soda?
Rachel knows. See, this is stuff Rachel knows. But I was just going to ask you, you have seen in science fiction a lot of religions be used.
Yes.
Catholicism, so many, like...
That damn hot atheist, though.
Atheism, of course, the best religion. But
we've
seen that...
In contrast...
Jews in space, we've seen that as well, like Judaism, whether it is direct or in symbolism. Star Trek obviously has a lot of that, but...
Ferengi.
Well, I was going to say Vulcans, but... For you, somebody who has a little bit of knowledge on the Mormons, I mean, what do you think about them being an aspect of the Expanse? Like, before, they were just like a little throwaway thing, but now they're saying these are going to be in the show.
I find it really interesting, especially, like, we watched Battlestar Galactica not that long ago, and that has a lot of Mormon beliefs in it. Not Mormons in it.
Right. It's dressed up in layers of sci-fi allegory.
Yeah.
More
but the idea of, okay, well, anywhere there's humans, Mormons would go to try and convert.
You're about to send your best and brightest Mormons on a 100-year voyage to a new world around a new sun. Who knows what tragic malfunctions might occur along the way.
I think it's time that we discuss your one true love.
My one true love?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about Havelock already, do you?
No, he's
literally in the trash in this episode, which I found good job, writers. That was a neat touch.
He's like your mistress.
But the true love, of course, is Chris Jen over on Earth. And what is happening with her? She's only in 1 or 2 scenes, but they're poignant. They're poignant scenes.
And important. Because that's what poignant means.
That's what every scene with her is important, it feels like. There could be a scene of her literally just clipping her toenails, and I'll say to you, that scene. So important. I wish that was a whole episode.
The Italian mob boss from The Sopranos.
Oh, that really narrows it down.
The female one in Italy.
Oh, right. See,
clips
now.
her toenails and make sure to burn them so that witches can't get them.
You specified. You just said Italian mob boss. I'm like, well, there's so many of them, and she's Sicilian if we want to get real succinct. But yes, Chris Jen, what is happening here with her, Rachel?
She is getting updates on what's happening. We're learning that Earth is aware of what's happening.
They have surveillance on it.
Yep. But they can't get there fast enough.
Yep, a few days away, but they do have the technology to monitor what is happening. They can get pretty quick relay on that.
Which makes sense because it's light.
Yeah, it's true.
Light travels pretty fast. So...
And it's just another example of Earth's power reaching very far into space. And so even though she's all the way back on Earth, she can still have this sense of being in this conflict, because really the majority of the episode is her worrying about this.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what's happening out there. She doesn't know what is going to happen to Holden and the crew that have been captured by the Martians. Who knows what the play is going to be here? And then when the attack starts happening, now there's even more of an unknown factor at play here. But a lot of her scenes are just that face, just solemnly looking into the distance. There's lots of great background details. Brian George is in the background of a scene reading to a bunch of children, and even his story.
The choice of story is sort of reflective of the pensiveness that is key to this thread of our story.
It's not going for the dramatic irony that in the background life is innocent and naive. No, it's not even going for that. We do get a portion of that, a sliver of that, when it comes to Chris Jen is eventually sitting on her rooftop looking up at the stars.
Laying down, stargazing.
Stargazing, well, yeah. And her grandson, who is unnamed, by the way. I looked, I was looking at the IMDb and they just have him as grandson. I'm like, okay, no name. Yet, which is weird. I feel like
he was in another episode.
He was in it's how we met her. He threw a water balloon at her.
And
we haven't seen him again since then.
Then.
No, he's just the grandson, but he is this innocent perspective on the world. And before we get into a little bit of the heady stuff with this, I did have a chuckle. As did you, when she's laying on this rooftop. It's gorgeous to look at that outfit, how they've got it around her head. They've even made it the thumbnail on our IMDb for the episode. Mm-hmm. But it very much reminds me of the set in Third Rock from the Sun. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that the whole time during the sequence of, when's Harry going to come in? Where's John Lithgow? Is he going to come up there and yell at Sally? I did get a big amount of amusement of being reminded that this was Third Rock from the Sun almost.
I briefly had, you brought up that, and then I couldn't unsee it, and I was just like, how amazing.
Truly.
How amazing would it be if it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
As the grandson? I'm just sure it's just rocks. It's just rocks. There's not even going to be ones big enough to cause that much damage.
It just meant in general.
They just burn up in the atmosphere. He has a backward cap song. He has his long curly hair again. It's still this actress though. She's not an alien, but he is. Hey, I love Third Rock from the Sun. Look, if the Expanse can have Brian George in it, if the Expanse can have Brian George in it, what's Rachel? Rachel, calm down. Rachel, what's stopping it? Listen to the question. Take a breath. What's stopping this show from having Wayne Knight in it? If he came in and he's the chief of police? Wait, if Wayne Knight is the head of the UN? That would be fucking casting. Rachel's losing it. Imagine this. Wayne Knight is the head of the UN. That voice? He usually has a goatee nowadays. So imagine the image.
No, you can't put that in my head. I'm not going to be able... No, it's not fair.
Todd, if you needed underpants, you could have just asked.
I didn't need underpants, Sally. I took them because I'm weak, because I'm pathetic, because I'm a man. And I couldn't resist touching something that had been so close to you.
Really?
I'm so sorry.
I can't believe you, of all people, would come into my house and do something so damn swell.
He is unaware, of course, of the dangers that are going on beyond those stars, but she does, and she's looking at things, shooting stars and asteroids, and
I'm wondering, what are those? Like, all of these things are happening out there, and
what's stopping them from coming here? These conflicts. What's stopping somebody from throwing a rock at us? They're throwing them at each other, and whether they're literal or metaphorical, the point is still made. And she's not sure, and we leave her there, unsure of the safety of the world.
I read it like her expressions as being oddly calmed or soothed by his naivety. The fact that he's been sheltered from this as much as he has been. Did you get that feeling?
No. I looked at it more as she was still caught up within herself. And who knows where this will go for her, because this was much more of a step back when it comes to Chris Jen in an episode. This is more her being an observer of the other plot going on.
And you were commenting that the balance of the stories has been a little bit out of whack. Like, there hasn't been enough time for things to breathe.
This episode definitely takes that time more, where yes, we still have multiple plots, but the other ones are significantly lesser than what is happening with Holden and the crew on the Donager.
Like, yes, they have an A, B, and C plot, but they aren't trying to make all of them even. It's like, no, this is the A, this is the B, and the C gets the leftover time.
We do have a B plot with Miller. He is still on the case and
hasn't even noticed that Havelock's missing.
Oh my lord. That was hilarious. He keeps mentioning, like, oh, I'm sure Havelock's just having a fun time.
Unreachable at the moment.
Havelock?
Oh, wait, now it's a bit inconvenient.
He's alive. Havelock's alive, by the way. I'm shocked. I was more confused that he still wasn't impaled on the wall.
Like
I guess he fell down at some point and went into the trash. And I love that nobody noticed him for ages.
No, like he was just laying there. Maybe he was.
I can't believe he fucking lives. He's going to be He's going to be in the show more. That means like he can't just die. He's going to be alive now. Oh.
We don't know. mean, I don't know.
There's never
Maybe,
been a character I would describe as an NPC more than this loser. He's such a fucking loser. And even the show knows
I can't even
it.
bother to finish the point that I was going to make because he doesn't deserve it.
I like that no one cares.
At this stage, like, he just doesn't deserve anything.
And I want to make this observation. We've had a problem with Miller and his storyline.
Yeah.
And I actually rather enjoyed it in terms of the
This
tone.
one?
Yeah, Miller in this. I enjoyed it in terms of the vibe, the atmosphere, and the tone. I'm not really thinking much about the story itself, the clues, the intrigue, and what it's building towards, but rather the character emphasis in just hanging out. And I think that's greatly improved in this one because Miller is on his own, and I think he works better that way. Just
Well, he also thinks that he's the kind that doesn't want a partner.
having him be this ghost-like figure that goes through the crowds and goes into these dens and finds things.
Knows exactly how everything on the station works.
And yet can still be surprised and still be confounded. And I also think he has a marvelous dynamic and relationship with the woman, with his other partner, the one that was
His boss, his intermediate boss, like
yes, and
his
obviously his
manager?
previous girlfriend figure. Those two actors have a great rapport with one another, but I think that dynamic is far better to watch. Not only on they were former lovers or flame or whatever the case may be, but the simple fact of he is this kooky, strange maverick, and she's there with her arms folded going, oh, come on, Miller. That is far better to me than the straight-laced younger boy with the puppy dog eyes. Privileged, the guy who needs things explained to him. She doesn't need things explained to her. In fact, she does the explaining to Miller, and I think that's better.
You don't want an audience surrogate, Ryan.
No.
You always love those characters.
What did you think of Miller in this episode? We've been
He was
harsh on him,
better.
but I mean, what did you think of just him on his own and him in relationship with somebody else other than Havelock?
I don't know. His characterization felt a little bit off in this episode because we didn't see his feet much.
I thought you were actually going to make the genuine critique that they are playing him more for comedy in this episode.
Yeah, they are. But I had to do the feet joke.
Thomas Jane. Dude hates wearing shoes.
Dude hates wearing shoes. Yeah, like they are playing up different parts of his character. It didn't feel inconsistent to me, but it was us seeing him in a different light. Like without Havelock there, he's more doing he's still sort of trying to balance what he's meant to be doing and still pursuing this other case. But also, again, he just kind of gives up on doing his actual job.
I think
partway through the episode, but
he had an actual job to do. But I agree with you. I think he is different. I would say he's confident and more competent as a character.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, this is a dude that would rise up to this kind of rank and have these kind of wheelings and dealings.
There's also a lot more wordless exposition given to us or visual storytelling because Thomas Jane isn't having to make all of these quippy comments to bad guys or to his aides. There are just sequences where he's walking through this house or this area with all of these junkies and freaks and he's just giving these looks and we're getting so much atmosphere just from him walking through there in his nice outfit. And we can make the observations of what this kind of culture is that inhabits this world now. I wrote in my notes, we've got cyberpunk style things here. And we do get information of that further expanded upon by him talking to people, but a large swaths of it I could gather through him just looking at it rather than him saying what it is out loud.
The whole slingshot competition sort of thing. It's not explained.
It just happens.
It just happens, and we see a visual that kind of helps you figure it out, but you're not sure of the specifics because you don't need to know. It's like, oh, they're doing something dangerous, and it is likely going to kill this dude, and they're betting on it.
The value of human life is so low that it's worth betting on. And when he does die, they all cheer and celebrate and have a laugh about it. And Miller discovers that this body he's found that was also one of the potential hookups for Julie Mao is not the identity that comes up when they are looking at it.
Yeah.
And so he discovers that this guy has a lot of cyber technology within him that is high-end, high-grade, and can be used for, like, not just crime syndicate stuff, but even military-grade, it seems, or at least secret ops level. And so we are learning that there's some greater conspiracy here. Like the magnitude of this is expanding more, and that is great stuff. I will admit that kind of cyberpunk or cyborgy, like body modifications-y stuff.
Not your jam.
I get overwhelmed by that in fiction because I think it kind of relates to me weirdly with fantasy where, I've got to learn a bunch of rules. I've got to learn, and not just that, but also, and this is a problem that I do have with other pieces of sci-fi, I've got to learn a lot of jargon.
See, I thought you were going to go with the fact that it can just be either a MacGuffin or a save all, like, oh no, we have this piece of tech that does this.
Just stick this needle into his leg and you can pull the magical thing out.
Yeah, and then it'll give you all the answers you seek.
Yeah.
If he is a spoofer, then he's probably got a bunch of other shady shit in him. Standard inner ear mic, spinal stabilizer, pancreatic pump, run of the mill. For the sedentary. Ha! He's got a memory crypt in his calf.
Let's talk about the crew. They've been captured and now they've been separated, with Holden being taken to the command deck. But we are still with the rest of them. We're still with Alex and Amos and Shed.
And Headless.
And Naomi. Well, that's Shed and Naomi. And, well, yeah, let's just talk about it. The visual that I have remembered from The Expanse is Shed's head getting blown off, and in the 0G, the blood going out, and then when they do seal up that vacuum, the blood just before the gravity comes back on and it's congealing into a bowl above his head, where his head should be. That's an image you don't forget.
No.
Like, that's one of those, you don't forget it. And yes, I did remember it was Shed, but I still felt, like, surprised by it because I thought he was a very enjoyable character. I like that actor a lot. He's very fun. He's a good actor, too. I've seen him in a bunch of things.
It's confronting in a way that's very interesting. Ever since the beginning, because we've started with so many characters,
you've got to cut them down.
I'm like, there's pruning that's going to happen. That's just a fact. And what characters have they already started to clip their wings?
They already did a fake-out death with Shed, so you could believe that they wouldn't actually kill him because they already teased us with a death for him in the second episode. But you were still surprised when this happened. You have this moment where
the brutality of it, because it's like you have no idea where it's come from. Like, you know that there's fighting going on, but you're not prepared for it to reach them because you don't have a solid sense of the geography of the ship to know that, okay, they're there and the weapons are this strong so it can shoot through. And it is that thing of it's just sheer dumb luck that it went through him.
Right in a headshot. Lucky.
Yeah.
We're also not used to, as often in science fiction, to have artillery and bullets be the thing that fire through ships. Usually it's lasers, usually it's missiles, but not shells in this way, not bullets in this. So when you do see that they basically make several million little holes in this ship, it really does give you the sense of fear of space combat, because it's not energy weapons. It's not just a bomb going off in one portion of the ship. It is, you can make a
the danger tangible.
You can riddle a ship full of holes, and that in itself can do all the damage you need because there's so many things to patch up.
Yeah.
And you can see how many layers of the ship it goes through.
Oh, yeah. But it's also like, well, you don't have to worry about killing everybody if you destroy the ship because they can't survive
if you ruin its structural integrity enough with just a death of 1,000 cuts, that will do it. I really enjoyed the sequence where Naomi and Amos and Alex had to, in 0G, fix the holes in their cell, and that they had little emergency things with panels of metal, and that they could nail and weld those on. I thought that was a really well put together scene, one of the best directed moments we've had in episodes so far. I've also not really seen a lot of that in TV shows either, where we are now in an emergency crisis and we're in 0G and we're actually having to not only deal with it, but you can tell that the creative team in the show have thought about how in the world there would have to be safety precautions in mind for a moment like this if it happened. If you're on a military ship, which we are on, you would imagine there would be some kind of protocol, some kind of training, or some kind of, ability to patch these things as they go on. And that there was demonstrated in this sequence with just them floating, which could be a silly looking image, but it's powerful nonetheless here. Them floating and passing each other tools. That's all you needed. They didn't need to set up anything more. They didn't need to over-explain it.
No. And it's a nice sort of step back from the amount that they had to do when they were all gathering the batteries on the
little shuttle that they were on.
Yeah, the shuttle. A couple of episodes ago now. We know how they work. We know that they work together. We know that they can get stuff done. And it's just like, okay, we've got the tools. We know what needs to be done. The show doesn't have to go over that more.
And these people that are here still have their conflicts that they had in the previous episode and the beginning of this one, but there's no time for that now. So there's no time to punch Alex in the face because he's a little Martian
Survival
soldier.
comes first.
Survival logic. Logic comes first here. It's logical that we need to do this, this, and this, instead of yelling at each other or making forced drama. I just really want to praise something about The Expanse. I was thinking about this. I know we're only 4 episodes in and this may change, but I just want to say it nonetheless. When it comes to Amos as a character, he is, for lack of the better term, he's the crazy one, right? Like, he's a sociopath. He's emotionally detached. He goes to violence really quickly. He's big, intimidating. He can easily come across as unstable. And oftentimes in media, that means he's the hurdle and or the maker of drama in a story. Look to, for example, say, Dargo in Farscape. The first season or two of Farscape is infuriating because 90% of the plots are Dargo is an asshole. Yes, angry, emotionally unstable, crazy one causes some drama and or we have to work around them. But Amos, they have not done that at all, because even though he has some of these things within him, that doesn't mean that he isn't, that doesn't mean he's stupid.
Or incompetent.
And he can still be a valuable member of the crew. Because I was looking at this thinking, there's another episode where he just punches Alex out to knock him out instead, right? Because he's the violent guy and he's the emotionally disturbed
we have the
one.
sedatives for later.
Right? And it's just or you have a moment where, oh no, Amos has fucked something up because he's just a brute. No. They don't disrespect the character like that just because...
it would be convenient.
Just because, conventionally speaking, when you have a person with all of these traits, it makes for easy to write drama. They don't do that, and I just really wanted to highlight that.
I want to say thank you. You know, for helping me all those times you did. You're a good person.
We learn that Alex, his background, at least according to him, was he was just a transport pilot guy. Basically, he was like a little bus driver.
A glorified bus driver. I love that line.
He's a loser, basically, and whenever they needed him to do something, he just would go, I wasn't that qualified. Like, I can drive a ship, but I'm not a soldier. I don't know what to do.
But I like it makes sense. Like, I was theorizing what he might have done and how that might play into it. I did not think that it would be underwhelming, but I kind of love it because it makes so much sense that in a highly militaristic society like Mars, you can have somebody who served for 20 years.
Just driving people.
Just driving.
And we learn little bits about how much practicality matters to Mars, not just for survival's sake, but it's a psyche. And so him just being a guy who just flies to and from places is valuable. Like, that's practical. We need that. But again, this actor's great because he manages to show us that in the previous episode, that attitude he was putting on, that's Alex the character puffing out his chest. Me being Mr. I'm a tough guy. But as soon as truth comes out, he goes back to that almost nebbish, not cowardly, but nervous and all over the place guy that we've known from the previous episodes. And I just thought that was truly delightful. When we get to the moment where they have to knock somebody out because we've got to worry about oxygen intake, we need Naomi because she's the engineer and she knows how to get out of this place. And Amos, you can go out. But what was the rationale why they had to take Alex out? Do you remember?
Because he wouldn't be able to carry Amos, but Amos can carry
him. Amos may as well have been flexing his muscles going, I'm a big boy. Yep. I can carry you, you're a little boy. I did like the look.
Also, you're weak Martian.
You're a weak Martian. I loved the look on Alex's face during that of, you're right, but that mixed with, fuck you. Like, I'm not a little guy. But you are in comparison to this massive, massive beast of a guy. While they are surviving and making the best of a bad situation, Holden is with the command deck. He is still being told to recant his statement by the captain. He's eventually strapped in because this ship that is stalking them is coming closer and it is disregarding any forms of communication. We even get to see the stealth ship in space a little bit more up close and personal, and it separates off bits of itself to make little fighters, to make breaching pods.
Mothership situation.
Mm-hmm. And we get to have a lot of Holden being the protagonist man, and he's the guy that they should listen to because he knows what this is, because this is the ship he encountered previously. And they're dismissing him because he's just a filthy earther guy who's put them in a lot of hot water. So why should we listen to him? He stinks. But so we get a little bit of that tension during all of the battle sequences of somebody let Holden out of his chair and just let him get his piece across. Let him command. And so I want to throw it over to you, Rachel. What do you think about Holden in this episode? And could you expand a bit more on what he is getting up to as well?
Well, he's just constantly being right and being ignored, which I found a bit boring. Because it's just like, well, I know they're not going to listen to him. And I know that this is gearing up for a big battle where I'm going to imagine everybody's going to die except our original crew.
Yeah.
Which is what happens. Like,
we got one Martian. The interrogator. He survives.
No.
Yeah, he's with them on the ship at the very end.
No, but I think he dies.
No, I think he's still alive.
I thought he died at the end.
No, I think he's just looking at the ship being blown up, the ship, and he's like, I wish...
No, I thought he was just like, I wish I could have seen it, and then dies.
No, I think, you know what,
maybe
guys?
he just
Let's make a
passes
bet.
out, because he was wounded.
He was.
So,
I'm keeping...
maybe it was another fake out. I don't know.
I'm on team he's still alive.
I would like it. I would appreciate like that actor.
He's great.
Fun.
Oh, he's a great actor, by the way. I looked him up and I saw, he was in Far Cry 5.
Done this and this.
He was great in Far Cry 5 as the lead antagonist, the father. Yes. Great actor.
So I would like it if he was still around, but I took it as he died. But it's just like, well, nobody's going to listen to Holden. And it's just like, I don't feel sorry for you, Holden, because you're an asshole. And you will continue to be an asshole. And you can be an asshole and be right. Continue to do that. But a part of it is that he's right by chance. And I don't like how they're framing that. Because they're not really acknowledging it. It's just like, he is protagonist man. Thus, he is right with all of his estimations and suppositions.
And he's also just happened to be in the right place at the right time, as you do. And
they strap him in.
I feel it's calculating with Holden because a little too much. And that's where it's the protagonist man comes in.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, but the problem with him, though, is too often I don't feel like he's a person, but rather a character with a specific purpose in mind and the way and certain things that the writers have to do to twist that, because they are aware he's the protagonist man character. They are aware that he can come across as too much of a virtuous know-it-all. So they try and add murkiness and dirt on him. We've said it before. He pretends to be a cynic, but he has a heart of gold. And in this, at every time he does the thing you're talking about, they add some other dick-ish thing. Like, he runs away and leaves the Martians behind so he can go get his friends. Like, they do go out of their way to make sure that Holden is also an asshole. And in text an asshole, not just we find him to be one.
They don't want to make him too clean, too perfect. So they want to add a little bit of grime to him. But to me, it feels like it's like, oh, that's grime on the outside that it will easily wipe away. Yeah. It's not adding any texture to the character.
He still comes across to me as someone you read about in summary of what a character is, rather than someone who is real and I believe in and I want to follow in. Throughout this entire story, he is getting all of this information from the Martians and eventually teams up with them, and specifically this one Martian guy. And I kept asking throughout all of it, why are they even talking to him? He has nothing to offer them at a certain point. And I don't mean that in just terms of information, but just personality-wise, he's not endearing enough for me to believe that this guy would pour his heart out to him. It only comes across that way. Like, it comes across that he pours his heart out to Holden because Holden is the audience, and it's so we can learn Martian ideology, Martian lore, and Martian world-building stuff, which I did love, and I loved all that dialogue, but I just kept looking at it going, why is this person even giving this to Holden? If it was Amos, if it was Naomi, if it was Naomi, I would believe it, especially because this interrogator guy had far more of a peculiar and much more electrifying dynamic and relationship with Naomi in the previous one. Here, he's just talking to Holden because, well, Holden's our lead character, and he needs to be told things, and Holden needs to nod. And Holden needs to learn this information so it can be valuable later.
I'm sorry. I really am. But I won't testify to anything unless you help me get my friends off this ship.
Shut up. I want to speak to him.
Yes, sir.
What do you think about the way that the Expanse handles action, both in spaceship battle ways, but also the shooty people with guns running around hallways? What do you think of it?
I think it's all right. Like, I'm struggling with it a little bit because I do like the balance, and I think the shooty stuff is choreographed really well, but I still am not invested in the fates of the characters because each time I'm walking into a scene, I kind of know where it's going, and I'm not invested in the journey. So it's like, okay, this and this thing are gonna happen, and oh wow, they do. And it looks cool while it's happening.
Yeah, Holden did fuck them all over, just like they said. That's why Shed's death and the others surviving in the cell is far more thrilling to watch when it comes to the action and the survival, because they were willing to kill off one of the characters and we didn't necessarily expect it. You could have, but still, nonetheless, they took away a likable presence, and in a very nihilistic way, they blew his head off and the blood got sucked into space, and when people looked at his dead body, they just went, Shed, and then they moved on. And that there was better when it comes to the action and the consequences of it than what Holden and the others get up to, because it's a bunch of Martians you don't know, and they all get picked off one by one, most of which we don't even see on the screen, or if we do, it doesn't register. Here's my critique of the action, specifically the space battle action. And this I will blame partially on Battlestar Galactica, but it's still... It's more so here, but can we pull the camera back? Just pull the camera back. I'd like to see what's going on, because I can make out images, but I'm not seeing what's happening. It's so close and tight.
This ship is doing this thing and this ship's doing this thing, but their relationship to each other.
Not even just that. I want them to pull the camera back so I can get more of a visual of what the thing is on the screen. I can make it out enough, but I just pull it back. I feel like since Battlestar Galactica, they've wanted to go for the gritty realism thing where in space it looks like a news camera footage and they zoom in and everything's all shaky and close and we have the camera strapped to the ship itself as it flies around, and that has its place and purpose and it can be used very well. But in this episode, I just kept wanting them not to show me the outer space shooty stuff, because every time they did, it actually pulled me out. When we were on the ship and we were getting hit and bullets were going through and people were running around with guns, I felt the intensity. I felt like this spaceship was getting bombarded. But every time we cut to outside, I kept thinking, oh, it's some weird, dark CGI shot that they don't want to show me fully because for whatever reason, for dramatic sake, or they want to hide the imperfections of their CG. Don't know, but nonetheless, it didn't draw me in. It took me out. We learn a lot about Mars. What are some of the things that you like to hear about?
I liked hearing from a Martian. Well, they've been sort of, I don't know, like talking about, alluding to that sense of Martians work together. That so many of them want to achieve the goal of making Mars as livable as Earth, basically. And how they're so determined to make that happen. And the frustration that they have with Earth and that resentment being played out in conversations, I found really interesting because it helps explain what led them to be so militaristic and seeing the beliefs behind the facade, I found really cool.
I agree. We find out that they do live in domes and they don't have the beautiful blue sky. They don't even know what oceans look like. They've never seen an ocean in real life. Many of them, a body of water. It's a dream. And that was wonderful to hear, and you basically touched upon all the points that I liked as well. But when it comes to hardships and living through the tough times and how that can be almost a cultural identifier and motivator, we've actually seen that happen with a lot of military powers. Think of Germany. Obviously, post-World War I into World War II, there was that definite sense, right, of we've gone through the hardships of being poor and broken and this war has devastated us, and now through that hardship, and we identify that as a character-building thing, we will rise and we will get what is ours. And we've also seen that with Russia. We've also seen that with China. Like, throughout all of history, we've seen this repeat. And so when we look at Mars, we can look at them and say, I understand why they're like that. I actually felt for him when he said that he wished he could see the ocean. And at the end, when he referenced that line again, I liked it. And I've said to you in the past, even though they have gone about it in a very aggressive way, I've related to the Martians a lot during this show. I've kept writing in my notes, they're right, they've got a point, they're justified. And this episode gave me a deeper appreciation of all those things, whilst also making me underline in my notes the troublesome aspects to the things that I also find to be the endearing things about them as well.
It's like when resilience turns bitter.
We are nothing like you. The only thing Earthers care about is government handouts. Free food, free water, free drugs, so that you can forget the aimless lives you lead. You're short-sighted and selfish, and it will destroy you.
It was such a great ending to get Alex in that ship, getting it into gear. Oh, I sure hope I know how to drive this thing, and just blast his way out of there. I was thrilled by that, because Alex is definitely one of my favorite characters, and to see him be the savior figure in this, at the help them ride out of hell, I was just smiling from ear to ear. I was just so happy. And again, I'll pass it over to you, but we talk about in Star Trek Discovery how oftentimes we get frustrated that the one character is always there to save the day. And we have problems with Holden, but at least that isn't the problem we have, right?
No.
We don't have that issue with the show either.
He comes in and saves the day, but it isn't like it's because he's magic and he's all powerful. Like I said before, they are trying to grunge him up a little bit, and there are negative consequences for his decisions. Like, he may save his crew, but now he may have accidentally started a galactic war. And same, like, thing again, like, they escape, but at what cost?
I think what pushes it over the line for me when it comes to Holden and this sequence here is you can imagine that if there wasn't Amos or Naomi or Alex there, the day would be lost.
Yeah, it doesn't it's not him and nobody else. That's them working together as a team and all of their individual traits working together to make a collective effort that succeeds.
And the fact that Shed isn't there to help patch anyone up is already a point of worry. We already see how the loss of one of them has already impacted the rest. And that's where Star Trek Discovery fails. Oh, what happens if Adira isn't able to help Michael with the mission? That doesn't matter. Michael will just win it anyway. What happens if Stamets gets impaled with the piece of metal and is incapacitated and can't fly the ship? I don't know. Michael will figure a way out for the ship to fly. It always goes back to that in Discovery and in quite a few shows recent times. And the Expanse, for all the problems we have with Holden, that isn't the one that we have. It's just he is a little bit too lame of a character, but they aren't making it so that every episode turns back to him being right and him being the best one. And so we end an episode where we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know the fate of our characters, where they're going to go to, and if they're going to be chased down by the ship even more. But I'm excited to find out.
They're in danger. They're going to stay in danger.
CQB. On our rating scale of Yum being bad and Yum Yum being good, what would you rate this episode?
Yum yum.
Yum yum.
I give it a yum yum as well.
Yum yum.
Like I said, I wasn't as enamored by it as the previous episode, but after sitting down and talking about it with you,
solid.
I'm more excited about it than I was when I finished watching it. As I said up top, the Mormon stuff I find to be the most intriguing, and even getting that here on the pod with you has got me even more keen to see them than just when I was watching it a moment ago. So this is definitely one that grows on me more so. So I'm keen to find out what we'll be watching next time. Now, we are just going to read the title. We don't know anything else. We can make some logical predictions on what's going to happen next or predictions on anything coming down the pike. It's called Back to the Butcher.
Ooh.
I've got a prediction for the show first, and then one for the next episode. So can I go with the show first?
Hit me with it.
Chris Jen made a real big point of rocks being thrown at them, and I do wonder if that's a piece of foreshadowing to Earth or Mars or somebody out there getting bombarded. Mass driver style, like in Babylon 5.
Yeah.
They made such a point of that I'm curious to see if that will pay off down the line. And we can have a moment of going, oh, her concerns were valid.
Is that going to be...
Is that going to be literal?
Yeah.
And so that's my prediction. And then my next one, sadly, for the next episode... This is a sad prediction, but I think a large portion of it is going to be Miller having to worry about them finding Havelock and him being stabbed through, and Miller probably having to take revenge and or find the perp who did that to Havelock. And I don't want that. And we're going to probably see Wiggy aka Lieutenant Nilsson from Discovery again, mourning over the fact that the love of her life has been impaled, and her being like, you can't trust our culture. I'm worried that that's going to be the case.
Okay.
That's my prediction. I don't know about the rest of them, but that's my prediction for the next
Okay.
episode.
So, this one was another episode that had a title drop. So I think it's going to be the same next week. I think it's going to be related to some story that one of the characters tells.
The title?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be the tie-in with the title. In terms of focus, I agree that it's probably going to be a bit more Miller-centric, with probably Holden in the B spot and Christian again in the C plot.
Mm.
But I think we're going to get more Christian next episode.
I hope.
Than this episode. And I think I want more Brian George. That's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
But we got a bit of him this episode, so I don't think we will, and I'll be sad. There's one other thing which is more something that I hope that they touch on, more than a prediction, which is like getting more into Miller's relationship with the boss / ex-lover.
Yeah, I want to know more about them. I just want to say, Holden's plot, it would be weird for them to repeat the last two plots he's had, which is survive in a tin can floating in space and or survive being shot at from a spaceship. So I don't know what they're going to do with him, though. Maybe he'll meet up with the OPA in space, or maybe even the Mormons, right? They set the Mormons up in this episode, and we know they're floating around in a similar area. I'm not too sure. I just don't know what they're going to do, because it would be peculiar if they did repeat one of those two things we've just seen the crew go through.
Would be a bit dull.
Thank you all so much for listening to us make our way through the Expanse. We're exploring it. We're going through it for the first time through. And you can find us on your social medias of choice. We can be found under yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast. We post regularly. You can email us over at yumyumpod@gmail.com. If you are not following us on Patreon or supporting us on there, it would be greatly appreciated if you could. It would mean a lot to us, but also you get a lot in return. You can hear our thoughts on The Expanse much earlier than when it comes out here on the main feed, because this is for our patrons first. So if you want to skip forward and hear next time's episode right now, you can. You also get to be a part of a group Discord when you join our Patreon, and so you can interact with so many other people. We have a wonderful little community right now. Many people making jokes and jabs about the things that we've been talking about here when it comes to The Expanse. So thank you all so much for tuning in and listening and giving us your time. It means so much to me. It means so much to you too, right, Rachel?
Yes.
And
yes, it does.
This episode, I cheated and I looked through the cast and I did not note down the guy who works for the OPA, the preaching guy, the guy with the microphone. He wasn't here in this episode. But I did go back to the previous episode when he was in it, and I've learned what his name is. Do you want to know his name?
Yes.
He has a name. His name is Gaunt Belter. That's his name. That's his title. Gaunt Belter. Because apparently, tell me this, Rachel, am I crazy? Does he even look gaunt to you? Would you describe that actor as a man that you would go, now that's a gaunt-looking guy? The guy who says dusters in that nice thick accent?
He's not like a beefy dude, but he's not gaunt. Like,
I feel like
slender.
I feel like I'm more gaunt than he is.
He does look a bit malnourished with like the makeup that they put on him, but
And also he's a ginger.
See you then. Well, voilà.